And it took me about 10 years to be able to even talk about it. But now I feel like I made a commitment to him that I would honor him.
Right.
And I would bring him with me into every room I go in.
On today's episode, we have the honor of having Christy Manzanas, the Director of Employer Relations. She bridges the gap between employers and students. And more than anything, she's a mentor of mine, guiding me in my professional journey. Christy, it's an honor to have you on here.
Thank you, Justin. It's an honor to be here.
So before you stepped into this role as the Director of Employer Relations, before you ever, help students, guide them on their professional journey, share us your diary. What is your story?
So my story began in a small town in Perry, Florida. And I think there were three kind of distinct periods of my childhood. I grew up on a cattle ranch where we had horses and cows, but we also grew all of kinds of food. So we had a farm and horses. I loved to ride horses. That was one of my favorite things to do. So there was that period of my childhood. And then in my teenage years, I started to understand that we were not in the same financial bracket as a lot of my friends were. And I kind of started to realize that we were a little bit different. And by the time I was ready to go to college, it was difficult for me. I had to commute back and forth to Perry, lived at home, and worked 30 to 35 hours a week to be able to afford to go to school. So that period when I was in high school, one thing that really helped me grow up and be able to attend college was I started entering in pageants. And I had a teacher that was a mentor to me, and she encouraged me, helped me learn how to speak on stage. She helped me rehearse. She put me through a lot of difficult situations like interviewing so that I could win a couple pageants. So I'd say that's really the core of how I grew up.
Growing up, were you an only child? Did you have siblings?
That is a year and 9 days older than me. Her name is Stacy. And then I have a brother. His name is Joshua. He was 3 years younger. And I think I'd like to share a little bit of his story with your viewers and listeners. So Joshua was a mechanical engineer, 25, had just graduated from University of Central Florida and had started his first job as an engineer and had come home to work for a company there in Perry, and he had barely been back, and none of us even sensed that there was anything wrong. And he had been going to work. He had just bought a new vehicle a big truck to go hunting in, and he had been hanging out with his friends. And one weekend, imagine having the greatest joy and the greatest traumatic trauma in the same week. That I was pregnant with Harrison, with my son, and he was born on a Monday. And by the end of that week, my brother had taken his own life. And, 5:22 in the morning, the phone rang, and it was my sister. And some things in life change your heart. They change who you are. And it took me about 10 years to be able to even talk about it. But now I feel like I made a commitment to him that I would honor him.
Right.
And I would bring him with me into every room I go in as a light. And that because I wanted so hard to turn that pain into purpose, into transformation, and something that I could do that almost speak to him, almost as me, representing him here with us. So that's how I've carried him with me till now. And for anyone who's had a loved one that's committed suicide. It's something that you can't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense. And I think the hardest thing to do is to accept that it happened and accept that you'll never know.
How did you find yourself in higher education and career services?
So I believe in being open to opportunities. And this is something that I didn't realize when I first graduated. I just had to get a job. So I started working at Synovus Bank. I had a mentor there, Tina Darnell, who now works with Patrick Scott, who is someone you're familiar with. So through working at the bank, I didn't like it. I didn't dislike it. I was working with, meh. Like, it was like, okay. But I saw literally an ad for admissions enrollment counselor at a private university. And I thought, now I can do that. That would be great to work with students and their families. And so I just applied for it. And next thing I knew, I was working there. And I was then the associate director, then the director, and I fell in love with it. Helping students is like everything to me. And then I ended up, Harrison was born, and then that happened with Josh. And it was like a stopping point for me. And the things that mattered most to me weren't my career anymore.
Right.
So I actually demoted myself. I didn't work for a year. So I left and stayed, home with Harrison. And then I went to the community college, which I really felt like was my tribe, because they're typically first generation students and then transfer over. And so there I was 50% students, 50% employers. So yeah, through being open and putting myself in places where I could network, and literally opportunities just came to me. I've had 3 employers in 20 years. So I've had a lot of promotions, and those opportunities have always just come to me. So yeah, I think if you're open to opportunity, you enter every room with that light, with a positive attitude.
Okay.
And like what you have taught me, the curiosity and asking the questions.
What is it that the high achieving students are doing that the mediocre students are not?
I think the high achieving students are bold. They're bold. And when they see, no matter what it is, so say it's an engineering student, and we have an employer here that has a manufacturing engineering division, but that's not what they're hiring for. So that top tier student would not see that as a negative. They wouldn't say, oh, but why would I want to go talk to them when they're not hiring for what I'm going to school for? Those top tier students would say, no, they have a whole aerospace and defense department that's huge. They have to be hiring engineers. So they would see that totally different and still come and attend and understand that every person you add to your network is a person that knows other people, and recruiters are all very close. So those top tier students are bold.
And give me 2 more. I want to have 3.
Okay.
So bold, number 1.
Bold, taking opportunities without asking permission.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so if you see on the Career Center's website a panel where we're bringing in some alumni from the medical field. So it actually says, for pre-health students, for specifically for this type of student, they only have 30 seats, right? So you have to RSVP and say that top tier student says, well, I'm not pre-health, but I do want to do something in healthcare, and I want to go to this panel, and get told, like, we're at capacity. We don't have room. That top tier student is still going to show up at that event and ask, it said it was at capacity, but I'm hoping there's a seat in the room for me. And I can tell you every time we will find a seat for you. Every time. So again, they don't wait for permission.
Okay.
They seek out those opportunities. And then I think the third would have to be knowing what resources are at the tip of your fingers.
I would even say like resources could be mentors, professionals, people who are able to guide you in your respective career journey because they have a lot of knowledge about that particular field. So what better way is there for someone to learn from someone who already walked those steps?
Right. And you never know who you're going to meet.
Right. So you said three. You said first one is boldness, and then number two is not waiting for permission, but seeking opportunities, and then number three is utilizing resources.
That's bold.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have when it comes to like obtaining a job, an internship, something along those lines?
I think the biggest misconceptions from students and from employers is they have very different perspectives. So employers think that their recruiting process is the best of the best. They think they're using the right technology, the right mix of, human being in there and having that connection with students and visiting campus. And then we learn at a panel we recently hosted with the Metro Atlanta Chamber and 10 of their employers, where yours truly was on that panel as a student speaker. And it was really the first time we had ever flipped it. We always have employers on the panel and students in the audience, but we had students on the panel and employers in the audience. And so it was really unique to hear how you all's, your needs and your values and the way you want to communicate is not through AI. It's not through the technology. You all said meeting people face to face, it means something. And it's going to make me want to look at your values and take those more seriously than if you have an avatar come and interview me. And I think Courtney actually said that she wouldn't even do an AI interview. And that's what a lot of the larger organizations are doing now is they're reducing their recruiting staff and doing everything through AI.
So let me ask you this, right? That example. Do you think students have that power to say, I'm not going to do an interview with the AI bot in today's job market? Because I never heard of anything like this.
Yeah.
Or is it like beggars can't be choosers type of situation?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say it's like
That's
that.
a harsh way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to say it like that, but I think, so Delta Airlines has been doing the avatar interviews for a decade. So they always had an AI step in the beginning, or it would literally be a recorded over the phone interview, but not with a real person. And that people wanted to work for Delta so bad. And Delta has great opportunities. They're known for their benefit packages.
Right.
And a lot of young people want to travel, right? They have always done that and have never had a problem. When I went to visit Delta in Atlanta a year ago, they told me that they get over 50,000 applications for their internship program.
Yeah.
Without doing any recruiting.
And even with that, too, in the lens of the employer, if you have 50,000 students, professionals applying to roles, you can't interview each one of them. You have to have a system in place, which for them is the AI agent or the little virtual interviews.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So going back to the student.
Yeah, I think you have to take the interview.
You have to take the interview, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And but Justin, what I like about it is just even think of it as practice.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a, high stakes, but not if you're not truly interested in the company. I think it's great to go on interviews just to practice. And most of those AI interviews are recorded. So a lot of the organizations will share those back with you. So if you can watch yourself, especially, you can learn a lot from that.
So what would you tell someone who's just absolutely miserable at their job? Leadership is poor, sinking, they don't respect them, and
I'd say you got to find something else.
yeah,
But I would say that it needs to be done in a very strategic way, and
okay.
it needs to be done while you're still working.
What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think the first step would be to decide on what that pivot is, right? So even if we would go, I would recommend they go back to find what are their strengths today, and then also do a career assessment that would bring them back like 4 industries that align with their strengths and interests. And then that would help kind of narrow down that choice. And then certainly just talk to them about different industries that are hiring now that would be more likely to hire someone with no experience in that field, but is looking for someone that's more mature, someone that's going to stick around, someone who already has transferable skills.
Companies value that loyalty. Like if you stay with the company, they do. So that companies don't like when professionals bounce like every 2 years, or they want someone to stay with the company.
Yeah, because they're investing in you.
Right.
And I think the cost of onboarding someone new, it's over, like, I think the last statistic I read was over $25,000. So if they're having to do that every 2 years times 10, 20 positions, that's a lot of money. So when they look at it just from a business angle, they want you to stay. They absolutely see you as an investment. Gaining more experience by being in different organizations is very smart. And it's almost like it's tactical because you're building those sharp skills, the ones that you know are your dream employers, like position description. So I think it's great. Again, I think it's bold.
I see what you did there. It's bold.
Yes.
Something I hear from my peers is that they operate as if they're their own business.
That's right.
There's a saying by Jay-Z. He says, I'm not a businessman. I'm a business commo man. And at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes that may be you leaving XYZ company for ZYX because they offer a better opportunity for you. And because there's a better opportunity for you, you get compensated more. And because you get compensated more, you're able to provide more for you and your family.
That's right.
And then the other side of the coin for the perspective of employers is like when things go south and they need to cut on the budget, there's going to be no shame when it comes to, laying off workers.
They don't care.
You see people who work 20 plus years for an organization and they'll lose their job. They'll get the email from HR. Hey, they gave what's the method called? The burger, not the burger method, the sandwich method. We appreciate, all your time spent with our organization. Your work was valuable.
You were amazing.
And
we no longer need your services.
Right. Exactly. We deeply apologize. We no longer need your services due to XYZ.
Well, that happened to my husband last year in February, and he had worked for the company for over 15 years. And, they were like family to us. We had babysat, we had been to weddings, we had been to babies, like we had a personal relationship with them. And they fired him. I mean, not fired him. They laid him off like it was nothing. Like they had never even met him. They could care less.
So like looking back from that experience, do you and your husband regret like having the employer like come and their family come over to the house, make those relationships? Is that something?
Yes, I regret it for sure, because it's like it proves.
Yeah.
That, people that you thought who actually cared about you, that would give you a warning, because they knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And then for them to just out of nowhere at 9:00 in the morning on a Zoom meeting, just be like, don't give any reasoning, no, nothing, just, we don't need you anymore.
Like it's business, nothing personal. kind of reminds me of the world of sports. You see, coaches, they'll take a new job at an organization. Coach, they have a decent year, then they have a bad year, then they're laid off, right? And there's no loyalty.
Yeah.
There's no loyalty, so.
Believe someone on LeaderDiaries spoke about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with, so he was talking about the portal and football players changing schools. And, I think when I was here as a Knoll and now being back as a Knoll, like, you gotta have loyalty.
Yeah.
I think that loyalty is my first value.
That's good. So going back to the workplace, do you think people can be their authentic self at work? Is there a balance?
I think there's a balance for sure. It depends on the culture of the organization you work in, but authenticity is something that I know I would never, ever compromise, because I don't know how to be anybody else. The only person I know how to be is me. And, I have a country accent that I'm proud of, and I have, very distinct things that make me me. And I think it's really important that you hold on to that. But I do think that if you're working in, say, banking, and, you have to wear a certain dress code for work, but you would never wear that if you didn't work there.
Correct.
So I think that's a fine compromise of, they want you to look a certain way. And I don't think that takes away from your authenticity.
Yeah.
Because I think authenticity is more in your behaviors and in the way that you have conversations and the relationships you have at work. But I think it's very important to be authentic.
Do you think me working, because I'll be working in finance, so do you think me working in corporate, I gotta cut my hair?
You better not.
It's a genuine question, because I'm an outlier. A lot of people in corporate, they have the low, particularly, specifically talk about men, they have the low cut, they don't have, long hair. So.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think that for them to ever question or suggest that you cut your hair would be very offensive.
Yeah.
Because they can't tell you how to wear your hair.
Yeah. How would they even phrase that? You're not a fit. Like, how would they say that?
They would say, to be a part of our culture here at our organization, we suggest or recommend that you might rethink your hair.
And that's them telling you, not recommend, like, you got to do this.
That's exactly.
And if you don't do this, you're going to hear from HR pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly. And
okay.
My thing is, like, why did they hire you?
Yeah.
Like, I had this hair before you hired me.
Yeah, that's funny. So now we're going to transition to the lightning round.
Okay, let me get ready.
One leadership quote that guides your everyday life.
This one I've had for many, many years, probably 20 years. People will forget what you say. People will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's Maya Angelou.
When the clock hits 0, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who came through some really hard things in life, but I never gave into that pain. And, those experiences, when you look back on them, I think it happened the way it did because I was able to give my parents Harrison when they lost Josh. And my mom always said, Josh wasn't my only child. She had me and my sister and Harrison and Dalton. And when the clock strikes 0 for me, I want to know that I took that light into as many rooms as I could, and that I sat down with as many students as I could and talked to them about what they want to do, their goals, their aspirations. If they're totally lost, like, that's okay. If you're 20 years old, you don't have to have your whole life planned. So I want to be able to help people on that individual level. I think that's really where my heart and soul is, and that's what I want to be remembered for.
That's powerful. Dropping those seeds. This is the Leader Diaries podcast, where your story is a diary worth sharing. Stay tuned for more episodes. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.